You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 345, Weapons Are Part of My Religion. We have been spending the last part of this week getting ready for this show, and it's been a lot of fun. I've gotten to pull out some really old Legends books, digging into some of the old Legends lore with Mandalorians, and I'm looking forward to really kind of breaking down some of the weapons. And to help me do that is going to be none other than Mr. Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show, sir. You ready
Thank you very much. You know what? I just noticed this, Albert, but you're getting a little gray on the chin there, brother.
Yes.
This must be the homeschooling effect it's having
That's
on you.
right. I'm trying to keep up with you, my friend, to be honest. So,
well, good luck. You're going to be here a while.
Yeah, you've set the bar pretty high. I know yours looks amazing. I don't think it's going to really do well. It's again, like I can't even grow the hair ends. I just look like I'm, going through chemo. But that's not a laughing matter. Anyways, yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to take that as a compliment. It's wisdom. It's 8 years of, fine cheese and wine. Probably more
and
cheese.
2 years of the Cantina Cast.
And 2 years of this show. Yeah, at least
almost three
years of the show. Yeah, how about that?
Hmm.
But so we're going to get into some news first. And before we get into the weapons of the Mandalorians and all that. And I thought we'd start with this, the New Republic, the High Republic. They've released the crawl officially. And it says Star Wars, the High Republic. I should have brought this to put up, but I didn't. So let me just read it real quick. It says, the galaxy is at peace, ruled by the glorious Republic and protected by the noble and wise Jedi Knights. As a symbol of all that is good, the Republic is about to launch Starlight Beacon into the far reaches of the Outer Rim. This new space station will serve as a ray of hope for all to see. Let me pause there because I like that they say this space station will serve as a ray of hope for all to see. And if you think back to the crawl from episode 4, we talk about the Death Star, an armored space station with enough firepower to destroy an entire planet, right? Totally different, very cool dichotomy. And I'm sure that they did that intentionally.
Same with like Glorious Republic. I mean, we're getting really stark contrast from the eras that we've enjoyed.
Absolutely. Yep. I like what they're doing here. Let's see. But it says final paragraph. But just as a magnificent renaissance spreads throughout the Republic, so does a frightening new adversary. Now the guardians of peace and justice must face a threat to themselves, the galaxy, and the Force. And they've hinted about that last piece a number of times. And so this all comes from the panel. New York Comic Con was it last week? Yeah, last week. And they released this and a couple of other small tidbits. Nothing really. I mean, there's quite a lot of information actually that's released. And we're going to have to come back, Jonesy, at some point and kind of get everybody up to speed and get ourselves up to speed on where this is at. But yeah, that they've hinted that the Force itself is going to be at risk and maybe under attack in some way. So, and I think Yuzhan Vong, but I know that's not where they're going, or maybe they are. Maybe they're going to surprise everybody. But any thoughts around how the
Yuzhan Vong would be awesome, actually. I wouldn't mind it. They were such a great foe. We could just talk about them for a whole episode if we really wanted to. Yeah, it's curious though that they keep saying that basically the Force is going to be under assault effectively, and it's really interesting to try to grab your mind around this of what exactly they're talking about.
Yeah,
because what could threaten the Force itself, unless world between worlds type of stuff happening? Because that's really the only time we've seen the Force itself or something operating outside of kind of the normal confines of the rules that we're used to. So are we going to get something similar to that, or something entirely different?
What were those creatures that Thrawn had? I always forget the name of them. That were like
Issa Lemire.
Is that what they were? Those
something
Force
like that?
density. They negate the Force in a certain perimeter and all that.
Yeah,
maybe that's it.
Something like that.
Something like that. Who knows? We'll see. We'll get to find out. That's again, the High Republic launches officially January 5th, 2021. That got pushed back a number of months because of COVID and all that. So on that note, the other thing that came out from New York Comic Con last week was they've announced another book, and it's just simply called Book 2. But this is the second.
Any speculation what it is, Albert?
Right? Yeah. Let me take a shot real quick. No, I have zero speculation. It'll all be predicated, I'm sure, upon the results of this book and all the young adult novels and the comic and everything else that's going on. I'm sure that they're going to just kind of build on that. And I like that they're doing. I like that they've announced this. And again, I'm going to go back to it. I love that they have a game plan. very much like The Mandalorian. It feels like this has all been laid out. They've got it all planned out where they want to go, A, B, C, and it may change. Maybe it diverts a little bit here and there, but they've thought about it. There's some thought that's been put into this. And so this is the second novel, July 6, 2021. It's not going back in time. And this is being released by Kevin Scott. So he's the one that's releasing the very first novel, which is The High Republic, Light of the Jedi. That'll be out January 5th. So he seems to be like their main writer for the big flagship novels of the High Republic.
And Kevin Scott gave us Dooku Jedi Lost, right?
Yes. Yep.
So if you enjoyed that, maybe this will be pretty good too.
Yep.
Jedi Lost was okay. There were a lot of great parts to it. So
yeah,
curious how the writing's going to hold up on this one. But you're right. I like that they do have an idea and something of a plan. It's interesting how we can get the book side really organized across multiple mediums too, with comics and everything else. But we've had such an issue with really a very defined set of movies. So it's a little curious. Maybe they've just learned the lessons. Maybe
I was going to say,
seeing the benefits. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe is this just a lesson learned?
Right.
Hopefully.
But books you have to plan pretty far in advance anyway, right? I mean, especially if you got multiple people involved, who's going to do what and when, and what piece are they going to play, in this pool of High Republic. So
I think what's going to be the most interesting aspect of all this for me is, are they planning with the television in mind and any potential movies in mind, right? Because that's always been a real, I'm not gonna say a disconnect, but they've been two separate streams of entertainment, right? You've got movies, and then you've got television, and then sometimes books and television, they may cross over here and there, but they do always feel like two independent. And so it's good on them that they're taking the book, at least the novel perspective, and running with that and planning far ahead. We get the sense that they're doing that with The Mandalorian. My hope is they're doing that with the Rogue One, Ben Kenobi, all that, or Cassian Andor, Ben Kenobi. But it would be nice to have this holistic kind of approach to the storytelling and find natural ways to kind of interweave these. That would really, to me, feel like they've grown up. And I don't mean that as a disrespectful. It just feels like there's a way more thoughtful process in place to really get us the stories and make it feel like a very connected universe.
Well, and they can use the books the books don't permeate everything, like a movie does. It doesn't seem to get, it doesn't get all the glitz and glamour. It doesn't get the casual folks. The casual folks aren't going to go buy books for Star Wars or any other franchise unless they're just really into it or it's got a lot of lore to it, like a Lord of the Rings. It's got a lot of history to it.
Yeah.
But this can be a bad, you were talking about the movie. So if it is positively received, it could be that, okay, we've got something that we can maybe work with and we can see if it translates to these other ways of for movies or a TV show or animated or whatever it might be. And they might be able to start to see how that's playing out, across this and comic books. And is it sticking? Is it hitting a right note? Who is it hitting the right note with? Right. And they can start to, cater the plan of what else they might want to do with this kind of new era of Star Wars that, they can start to explore it and then really, bloom it out like we've done it with all the other content that we've had over 9 movies.
Yeah. Yeah, well, all to yet be determined. So we'll definitely keep following it. And again, at some point, we'll come back and get everybody up to date. We'll need to do some kind of a High Republic special or something where we, just bring it all together and give you one big update. So the other thing, the last thing, and it's kind of small, but means something. I think for me at least as a avid viewer. Mandalorian season 2, they released the schedule officially. It's out there. Well, I wouldn't say officially, but it's by a number of sources. It's been out there. No titles or anything like that, but I think the big key takeaway here is that the episodes are coming out on Fridays, and there is no break. So there are no breaks. There's no break in the continuity. We are going to get one episode after another, all 8 of them, between October 30th and December 18th, which is kind of sad to think about. Like, this will be the highlight. I mean, everybody talks about 2020 and how much it sucks. Well, It's going out with a bang, at least, with The Mandalorian on a set schedule, and we're going to get all of them. So. But yeah, this is good news, right? I mean, we don't want to break, and I was worried that we were going to have to wait and all that. It seems like it's full steam ahead. And I read today they're doing Mando 3, by the way. They already started filming that. But go on, sorry.
Yeah, we didn't know. When we did this last year, remember, we had Rise of Skywalker butting right up against it, right? So December 18th this year, that was the exact same time when Rise of Skywalker was coming out. So it's good to see that the way that they released it last year is consistent with what they're going to do this year, and that it wasn't just to accommodate the movie. Because I like this. I mean, especially, and it makes sense to do things like over Thanksgiving holiday and whatnot, because people are at home with their families. Yeah. And this is great to have new content. Usually you don't have a lot of new content over the holidays. You have sports. It's about the only thing that's new. And then you have a lot of classics, right? The classics that start to creep in. So it's great that you'd have all these around the holidays, and then for the Christmas break and New Year's, then you've got the whole thing. You can watch all of it together if you want to, and just do them back to back, which
Yeah.
I think it's great marketing. I think it really pushes the whole Disney Plus thing around the holidays too. So if you're pushing again for another subscriber, buoy, this might be your opportunity to get another spike.
Right. Yep. All right. Well, that's all the news we had. And so with that, we're going to get into this. And this is, we haven't done this. I don't think we've done this in the Cantina Cast. Maybe we have. We do this in the basement like every week. But we are going to get into the weapons are my religion piece of this show. And so the approach here is, this quote, first off, let's just talk about the quote. The quote itself, everybody got chills when we heard that, right? Because the Mandalorians are well known for the number of weapons. We've seen them do all kinds of really cool things and very violent things throughout their course of history, which goes back thousands upon thousands, like tens of thousands of years, which is even hard to kind of wrap your head around. But that's Star Wars Legends lore, right? But to actually hear him say that was really kind of satisfying. And so what I thought we'd do is just kind of, as a pretty light episode, but a fun episode, to kind of go through some of the weapons that we've seen over the years, and then try to kind of tie it back to why it would be a religion, or why he would use the term a religion, and why it's so important, why the weapons are so important to them. And so hopefully by the time we've gotten through all of this, we will have made that point. We'll see. But let's start with, I want to start with a really quick history lesson. And I promise I'm going to keep this very brief, because if you go back and look at the Mandalorian history, it goes, there's pages upon pages of things written, and you could really spend an entire week reading all of this, which kind of what happened. But I want to start with something called Mandalore the First. Now, we've mentioned the Mandalore, right? In fact, they say it in Mandalorian in season 2 or season 1, sorry. And I forget who was it that said it. Was it the armor?
It was the armor.
Yeah.
Mandalore the Great. Yep.
Yeah, she talks about Mandalore the Great. And so I want to talk about this idea about the Mandalores, and I'm using that as like a proper noun here. So right. I want to talk about Mandalore the First, and it starts off with all of the leaders. They've had a number of leaders over the years that have been Mandalore the something, right? This is the leader that's kind of pulling the clans together. They've all dedicate themselves to following this, and it's part of their creed, which we'll get to in just a little bit. But and again, there's been a number of them, and it really the title of Mandalore comes from this person's first name. Like that was actually his name. The very first one was called Mandalore, and the word Mandalore translates into soul ruler. So already that kind of gives you a background of they are kind of like this, what is it, like I wouldn't say royal. What is it when they've got a king, a monarchy, right? They've got like this kind of a monarchy system where they follow a single person. And it has been women and men throughout the course of the year. So this isn't exclusive to men. They were very open to having women. They had a number of women throughout their history that were the Mandalore at some point. Right. But so this goes back about 7,000 years BBY is when the first Mandalorian, the Mandalore the First, came about. And this guy, and you can see a picture of him here. That picture is actually from Star Wars: The Old Republic, the MMO that I sometimes still play.
And the door you heard slam was Mike Rondo leaving.
Yeah, he's out. He's done. He's done here. But this is it's one of the statues that's erected in the game that you can go see, and that's kind of a picture of him, at least from that perspective. There's other ones, and it's really hard to tell which is which. I've seen pictures of him wearing some very like skeleton looking armor and that kind of thing. Right. But just quickly, so he actually led the Tongs to a planet called Roon, Roon, and when they got to that planet, it had all the mythosaurs, and we've heard that legend before. They wiped out all the mythosaurs, and that really kind of started this idea of conquest, right? The Mandalorians need to go out and they need to be able to conquer things. And when they did that, they renamed the entire planet from Roon to Mandalore in honor of Mandalore, the first Mandalore, as a symbol of thanks, right? They want to put him on a pedestal. What better to do that than name a planet after him? You can go buy a star for like $2.99, by the way. Right. So he led them. That was kind of the beginning of that. And from there, the legends, that in Legends Mando's called other planets, they started calling other planets home. So they became a nomadic tribe. Even though they were at this planet, they would go to other planets and call that home as well. And it really kind of speaks to, I think, what we see in Mandalore in season 1 with the clan and being at, what's the name of the planet now that they were on the base? Whatever. Okay. Navarro, right?
Navarro, yeah.
Yeah, so in Navarro, that's kind of their home, and that technically is Mandalore. I'm using air quotes there. but it is kind of wherever their heart is, and that speaks to that nomadic piece of them. So it's an element that's going to play a little bit later when we get into the weapons and all of that. So let me go here real quick. I want to read this little quote because I thought it was really awesome. And so this is from Mandalore the Destroyer, another Mandalore leader at some point. He says, "Here's why you can't exterminate us." And then Arueti is the outsider, is in Mandalorian. "Here's why you can't exterminate us. We're not huddled into one place. We span the galaxy. We need no lords or leaders, so you can't destroy our command. We can live without technology, so you can fight with our bare hands. We have no species or bloodline, so we can rebuild our ranks with others who want to join us. We're more than just a people or army, Arute. We're a culture. We're an idea, and you can't kill ideas, but we can certainly kill you." So right there, I mean, that I think speaks to this whole idea of a creed, and it speaks to the Mandalorians being very open, even thousands of years ago, to allowing anybody to join their ranks. And and I guess, we see that even now when you think about season 1 and the way that ended, and the child coming in and her, the armorer saying, "You guys are a clan of two." This is, this is kind of where it started back then. And he's right. You can't, it's almost like an ideal is what he's saying, right? You can't kill an ideal. And you hear that with like terrorists, and that usually comes up. But essentially, it's the same thing here. You can't kill the Mandalorians. It's why they've been able to survive so many thousands of years, and why they are the way they are.
Right. And you also see this with just the stigma that they have of this aura and that permeates history. And everybody knows about the Mandalorians, even if they don't see them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it goes, and it speaks very much to this, where this culture, this way of living is really unknown to a lot of people. They really don't understand this in any kind of way. So it was great that someone laid it out for them.
Yep.
But it's easy to recruit if people kind of worship your culture or have a bit of a, what's the word? I don't know. No, well, I can't think of the word. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
But people, it's just where people, they just want to be a part of something.
Yeah.
And especially these younger kids, if you've been saved by someone, then, you
Right.
quickly are indoctrinated.
This guy's got armor. He's flying around. He's a badass.
Right.
He's got guns. I want to join that. Right. I want to be part of that
weird
cause.
saber.
Yeah. I think cause is what you were maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So this is a great quote from Mandalore the Destroyer. But I want to touch on one quick thing again. I mentioned earlier, the Mandalorian mindset is that they believe in this kind of divine plan that you either conquer or be conquered. And they would chalk this up to just the galaxy and stars above, right? And just stay with me for 1 second. They would see planets devour, or stars devour, go into a black hole, and the black hole would just eat other planets and other stars, and then there would be a super black hole, and that would eat something else. And right, so there was this larger idea that something was going to conquer you unless you did the conquering, right? And that's from a philosophical, religious perspective. That's how they saw it, and so that fed into them feeling the need to conquer. And of course, you can't conquer without weapons, right? And so this is kind of where it plays in. So there's a really good direct tie there with the religion of weapons and this theology or the dogma of going in and wanting to conquer people. And so it's been there, again, it's been around for thousands and thousands of years. So war, combat, weapons, it's all part of that religion. It's all part of who they are, and it's been that way for such a long time. Right. So from here, I want to get into this. So this is the Rezalnar. Now this is it's called the 6 actions. It's kind of like if you want to be a Mandalore, you've got to follow these 6 rules, right? Call it a creed. You think of like the Sith code and the Jedi code, right? It's very similar, but this is the Mandalorian. So I thought we'd break this down. And then I want to talk about, like, as we break each one of these down, talk about where we see these examples. And again, with the perspective of, weapons and religion and all that. So here's the first one. It says all warriors must wear armor. Now, I think it's pretty obvious. Every single Mandalore that we've ever seen has had armor, and including the Mandalorian. Beskar has been a big front and center in season 1. Well, later on, we're going to show some examples of other Mandalorians. They've always worn armor. So that's a pretty straightforward one, right?
Well, and to the point where they don't take it off in front of other people as well.
Yes.
It is who they present themselves to the general public and then the galaxy at large.
Yeah, that's a great point. A great point. The second one says, must speak the Mandalorian language. So
we haven't seen this one quite yet in the show. I'm curious if we will, though.
Yeah.
Because it was in the books, it was always great because they could, it was just like the quote you had. they can throw little terms in here and there
Mhm.
that give you the idea of the language without having to go through complete subtitles. Although it would be great to have Mandalorians speaking to one another in their language in front of in front of common folk that can only speak basic,
Yeah.
and and see subtitles and what was going on. But yeah, I hope we get some of this in Mandalorian.
Yeah, that would be cool. And I think if they would have had if they had an opportunity to do this, you would have thought they would have done it like when he went down into to go see
Right.
the armor, either one of the times that we saw him on screen, that they would all be speaking in Mandalore, not speaking in common or, English as we know it, right?
Right.
But that's not to say that, again, maybe he runs into somebody like Sabine and they have a conversation because they're she's trying to keep her head low, or they're trying to stay in secret, or whatever else. But it would be cool to see that, whether
Well,
that actually plays it out.
so you're onto something that I like about that, Albert. If they come across another Mandalorian that they don't know,
Mm-hmm.
is this something that they should address them in their language?
Oh, right.
Because that is how you greet one another, or something like that. You don't just start having a powwow or go over the comm links, but you actually have some sort of initial interaction, a meeting that introduces yourselves to one another, or identifies who you are and who your clan is and things like that.
Yeah, or vets you or legitimizes you as a Mandalorian in some way, right? Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so number 3, defend themselves and their families.
Sure, and you made a point off the air about this, that we're starting to see this develop a bit beyond the culvert, which we saw, and so now is it starting to go back and forth between Din Djarin and the child,
Right.
or some of his other folks that are all around him. So it's interesting to see the family unit, which really speaks to the quote we had before, where you build your family, you create your family, this becomes your world,
Mm-hmm.
and then yes, it's yours. And I think you had a quote from the armor that really cements this type of ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the fourth one here is uphold and contribute to the clans. And we definitely see this one, right? I mean, this is
Sure.
that whole concept of, hey, we need to give back to the foundlings, right? And he keeps donating things to the foundlings. He's giving directly back to the clans to ensure that they stay successful and stay alive and have the resources that they need and all that. So,
Right.
pretty good examples in what we've seen in season 1. Next, number 5, raise their children in the Mandalorian ways. And this is the one where, like, you don't really see anything that you can point to as a direct, oh, yeah, I can see that in season 1. But what I threw out there, and it's pretty light, maybe it's just the seed of what's about to happen. But at the very end of season 1, where he puts the little mythosaur signet, necklace thing around his neck and puts that on him, I see that as kind of a raising your children in the Mandalorian ways. Now, he can't talk to this thing. It is very limited. And the analogy I used, and I don't know if it was a good analogy or not, but right, if you're of a religion where you have like a holy cross, and that's very significant, right, and you put that around your neck, you buy that for your child, and you put that around their neck, and that becomes something. It means something to them, and they realize, okay, this is who I am. I need to be taught in this way. I need to have this cross around my neck. But then other Christian religions don't do crosses. Even some religions don't. Some religions don't do crosses at all. Yet they believe in Christ, and so. And by doing that, you are teaching them in their ways of religion. And so I think maybe there's a seed there where he's starting to do that. Maybe we see more of this in season 2. I would imagine that we're going to see something more in season 2 where he's raising them. I don't think he's going to be running around a little, toddler-sized Beskar armor, although that would be pretty wicked.
Wait,
But
hold
yeah.
on. Does he have cutouts for the ears or what?
Yeah, maybe it does.
Everybody
Ears
wants
just
to know
pop right
this.
out.
Right.
Oh, that'd be awesome if it wasn't, and it would just look like these fierce metal Beskar ears coming out the side. That'd be great.
But no, I think you're onto something there, because the gesture of him doing that is effectively him welcoming him into the clan, and also the Mandalorian accepting that this is now his clan, this is now his family. So this is where it all begins, right? You start from somewhere. It's not like he's in active training or anything, but
Right.
this is that very first step.
Yep. Yeah, Jeremiah was talking about the does he get armor, and Michaela says armor ears. Yep, that'd be awesome. All right, number 5 is number 6. Sorry, rally to any campaign that Mandalore, and that's the proper noun Mandalore, the leader, the ruling warlord chooses to pursue. And now again, there have been a number of warlords over the years in Legends. I think Boba Fett becomes the Mandalore at some point, reluctantly. But I almost saw, I guess, the armor would kind of be a fit into this role. They did follow her, even though she may not have declared herself as the Mandalore. It seems like they did do what she asked them to do, and she was kind of the de facto leader, although she stayed behind. So maybe that was part of her orders as well. But I think that would be an example maybe in season 1 that we saw.
Yeah, I agree. And it's difficult to call her, like, it's different to call her a warlord and that she's actually barking orders or that she's got a directive that they're all doing. But clearly, when they rallied to Din's help, it was clearly going to be on an order. And we had talked about kind of matriarch and things like that in previous episodes, but it very much could fit this Mandalore type of ideology. And we've seen this in Rebels as well with Death Watch and in Clone Wars. So we see that, this leadership, even though they talk about not having leadership, clearly they do have leadership in some way across even the smaller factions that aren't the absolute Mandalore. So
right.
There's something in there. There's still a bit of a hierarchy, even if it's a bit more horizontal in nature and just a bit more, evened out. There are still pockets of leadership, even if they don't necessarily define that, and they can fill those ranks quickly if someone were to die or pass on or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
And just for the record, we had the last canon Mandalore, the Mandalore that we had was Pre Vizsla. So that goes back to Clone Wars. He calls himself the Mandalore in there. Of course, Maul kills him, so we don't have one now. We thought, but that was going to be Bo-Katan based on what we saw when the Darksaber was past her. I don't know if she ever declared herself as the Mandalore. Maybe we'll find that on season 2, or we found out somewhere else. But that would be the next logical person that would have declared themselves as the Mandalore. And then again, my theory all along since the very first episode has been that Din Djarin is going to become the Mandalore at some point. It'd be cool to figure what his name's going to be. Mandalore the what?
Right. And to be clear, Darth Maul never assumed the mantle of the Mandalore.
No.
And he never called him. He didn't care. He didn't care about any of that culture at all.
Right. Yeah.
So for anybody that might be out there, well, he had the Darksaber, he killed him. That's really still not really how it works entirely. So
yeah, he wanted nothing to make. Because you would have to argue that he adopted all the ways and all that stuff. So exactly. He could have called himself that, but no,
he would have been a name only.
Yep. A name only, exactly. Okay, so quickly on this one, think about, so we're going through the timeline again. At some point, the Mandalorians get into the Mandalore Wars, or Mandalorian Wars. Now, in Legends and canon, they're a little bit different. Long story short, it begins with them fighting the Jedi, and this starts thousands upon thousands of years of fighting the Jedi, and why weapons become such an important aspect in their everyday life, if not their religion, because they've got to defend themselves. And there's a great quote in here from Jedi Master Nostral, who's from SWTOR again, but it says, the Mandalorians believe confrontation is required for growth on the personal as well as the cultural level. War is the Mandalorian way of life, and combined with their thirst for conquest, it makes them undeniably dangerous. So just from that perspective alone, there is a valid reason why they have always relied heavily on weapons and lots of different weapons of different types to either defend themselves, attack, conquer, part of the religion, right? Part of the culture itself. It fits directly in with that quote from season 1. So, right. And then, sorry, go ahead. You have something?
No, and this is in our culture too. Maybe not conflict, but discomfort, right? So discomfort for the sake of growth in your relationships or in your personal well-being. You have this dissonance that you have to resolve, because otherwise you get complacent. You start to, you kind of adapt and conform. Mm-hmm. So I think this is really, it's interesting where it seems more warmongerish, but if you kind of pull it apart just a little bit, it's really just saying that they are never satisfied with who they are or with where they're at.
Right.
And not only just from a conquest angle, and again, this is a Jedi perspective. So I think some of that is important to keep in mind with it of how they view the Mandalorians.
Yes.
But it's this, but it's still the idea that they need to improve. They always have to get better, and they're never satisfied with what they have. And I guess, like they said before, we can drop all of this in a hat and start over. We're okay with that.
Yeah, that's a great point. So this is Mandalore the Ultimate, and so we're going to get into the real meat here in just one second. So the kind of last thing here is, so Mandalore the Ultimate. So this goes back to about 4000 BBY and the beginning of the Mandalorian Wars. And what you see here is Mandalore the Ultimate. He's actually fighting Revan right there, believe it or not. Yep. And so this is, the Sith come in. So you got to remember, so prior to the Mandalorian Wars, the Sith and the Jedi had just come off the Great Sith Wars of Jedi, and that was, I don't know how many years of them just fighting back and forth. both of them were completely worn out. The Jedi numbers were really low. The Sith numbers were really low. You had this Sith that came in and tried to convince Mandalore the Ultimate that now was your time to take on the Jedi, right? This is the perfect time to take them because they're weak. They've been exposed. They're rebuilding. And what better way to conquer as part of your growth than to go after somebody as powerful as a Jedi and just wipe them out? So he goes and convinces Mandalore the Ultimate to take this battle on. And so they do. And so they kind of start on the Outer Rim, and they're kind of starting these little wars here. They're trying to bait the Jedi into fighting. The Jedi don't want to do it. They know that, one, this is not their war. They don't need to do it. And two, they don't have the forces to do it. Well, a character by the name of Revan, along with Malik, who were both good at the time, decided we can't sit here and tolerate this. We can't allow the Mandalorians to constantly keep conquering all these planets. They're starting to move their way into the inner rim, and it's going to be a matter of time before we're just going to be forced to take action. And so they proactively decide that they're going to join the Republic forces. So Revan and Malik go out. They're almost kind of a two-man army. They've got a couple other people that go with them, the Revanites, which were force sensitive, and they go out and wipe out the Mandalorians. And that's kind of what it starts. That starts the whole Jedi versus Mandalorian. And that keeps on going, again, for thousands upon thousands of years. And it's important because what we're going to talk about is a lot of the weapons that they used are very practical and were actually, I mean, they're great weapons to have, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, they were made and originated, right, from the Mandalorian Wars because it was a necessity in order to take on the Jedi and what the Jedi could to do with the Force and lightsabers.
Right. And a lot of what we're going to see, you get this kind of speed and versatility that kind of permeate a lot of the weapons, right? Because you have, what are the things that are going to put a Jedi at a disadvantage, right? You have to have some element of surprise. You have to be able to act quickly. You have to be able to distract and deter what they're doing. So a lot of the weapons we're going to see are good for general application, but we'll point out how exactly this might have been catered towards the Jedi in some cases.
Yeah, to defend them. Okay, so last thing before we get into the weapons themselves. So I thought we just kind of touch on this too. So there's a couple of different armors, and it's funny because this is what we're doing. If you go out and look up Mandalorian armor, there are so many videos and articles and books and everything written about the Jedi armor and the defense capabilities they have. If you go try to find like a consolidated list of here are all the weapons they use and why, it's very difficult. It's so scattered, like it's bizarre. And not to toot our own horns, I just thought it was an interesting topic, but I did not realize that there really wasn't a lot of information out there to begin with. So we're doing the Lord's work, if you will. So in the far top right-hand corner, they've got a couple of different Mandalorians here. You've got the Crusader armor, which is that bone armor that's looking there in the far left-hand side. The blue is kind of like the Neo Crusader. And in Legends, that is eventually what is used for the Imperial Guards that we see in Return of the Jedi. It kind of evolves into that. And then the far right-hand side, in Legends, that was the Death Watchman, which we know as Death Watch in the canon perspective. And then the far left-hand side here, this is the Tongs. So when I mentioned earlier about Mandalore the First, he actually led these Tongs, and this is like an alien race, out to fight, and they wore this helmet here. When he came up with the Mandalorian armor, he decided to model it after their face. And so if you look at the Boba Fett and Jango and Sabine and Din Djarin helmets that I've got here, and just more, there's a lot of different variations. But that T that we were all so familiar with really stems originally from the Tongs, maybe Tong T if you want to remember it that way. But it stems from that race that he led to wipe out all the mythosaurs on Mandalore, and it's stuck. I mean, that's just been the signature look for the Mandalorians ever since. So, and then, of course, the four that we have down at the bottom, those are the guys we're going to get into. Okay. Let's see. What is Jay? After this history lesson, I'm going to assume Mandalorians craft their weapons out of the bones of their enemies. There you go. We'll roll with that. I like that.
Nicely done, Jeff.
Yeah, nice, Jeff. Thank you. Okay, let's get into the weapons. And I thought we'd start with these. So we're going to talk about a lot of the blaster type weapons. And I mean, we're not going to dig into the aspects or the specs on them or anything like that. We're not going to get that into the weeds.
Right.
I just want to, again, talk about these as we go through these, talk about their use, and why they would use them, whether or not we feel like they'd be effective against Jedi, and then, where we see maybe examples of some of this stuff. And I've got some examples in here that I've preloaded. But let's start with, this is Boba Fett's BLASTECH EE3 carbine rifle. We've seen him carry this thing around. You tell me, Jonesy, like when he's on when he's on the skiff in Return of the Jedi and he's got the gun out,
Right.
is that supposed to be this weapon?
I think it's supposed to be. Yeah.
It looks a little different to me, and maybe I need to go back and look at it, and I should have done that, but I didn't do it. But
No, it does look different because it seems like more of a handgun. But I guess some of it is where the stock is at. You might just not be able to see it. We might have to go and do a complete scene by scene analysis now of to make sure to see if we're right. But I think it's supposed to be the same weapon, and we definitely see it in Empire, of course.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And there were other bounty hunters that use this, so he wasn't exclusive to him. Again, and also like the EE3 is just one model. There's an EE4, a 5, a 6, all the way up to 11, maybe 10. It goes up to 11. There's a joke in there somewhere, but yeah, I think there it goes up. Like I've seen all the way up to 11. So this is just it's a common rifle. The rifle itself wasn't very good at least the way I understood it was long range. It wasn't very effective, but he had tweaked his short range. It's super powerful, but Fett had gone through the painstaking effort of modifying this weapon, including a scope on it, so that he could use it at long range, and it was maybe nearly as effective, just as effective as if he was firing it from short range.
Right, and it shoots in 3-round bursts as well. And you're right, accuracy in general. Of course, it seems like accuracy with any BLASTECH rifle, because so BLASTECH is also who makes the E11s, like the Stormtrooper blasters and all of that as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So not known for accuracy in general. If you've ever played Battlefront, you can attest to that.
It's an afterthought.
But yeah, so the 3-round burst again is not really looking for long range. It's not a sniper rifle. It's not even a long range rifle. It is designed for short and medium distance. It's more effective. Like you said, it does have a powerful burst, but again, and we look at the Jedi though with this 3-round burst idea is again shorter range. You need some sort of it's a little bit big for a weapon to do against the Jedi specifically though.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are looking for something to get a quick repetition, especially those who are more proficient at lightsaber defense, you're looking for something to be able to get through that defense. And burst rifles make a lot of sense to do that.
Yep. Right. Yeah, we'll hold that thought because we're going to touch on that when we get to Django and the Western 34s here in just a minute.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about the AMBAN sniper rifle. And now this one we could spend a lot of time on here. I think everybody knows this pretty well. We've already certainly talked about it. It's got the taser on the front, the fork taser on there. It connects to his helmet, so he's able to kind of see through the scope and get all kinds of digital stuff going on there. It acts as a normal rifle, but the most important, I guess maybe the most important, the most intriguing, exciting thing about this is the disintegration piece and being able to fire these disintegration mortars. And it's during the time of the Empire, and even before that, actually, these things were outlawed. Like they weren't even allowed to be used. And it kind of mimics our own, like even reality today. There are certain weapons that are technically off limits, even in nations have agreed that if we ever go to war, nukes are on the table, but these weapons are absolutely not on the table, which is bizarre, but that exists today. And this same thing here, like the idea that you could disintegrate somebody, and there's a whole, I went into the whole, I got into the weeds about how it works and your molecules frying all at the same time and all that, which is kind of interesting. But the part that I thought was the most intriguing was they don't really like bounty hunters didn't really use this. Like this wasn't a common weapon for bounty hunters to use because if you think about it, you've got to show proof that this person's dead and you're disintegrating them. So you think about the line from Empire Strikes Back when Vader walks up to Boba Fett and says, "No disintegrations." That is because he wants to ensure that a body is brought back and that Boba Fett or whoever, any of the bounty hunters just said, "Oh no, I killed him. Trust me, he's dead. Don't worry about it." Right? He wants valid, solid proof, material proof, no pun intended, that this person's still around or dead.
But it always still makes sense to have some sort of long range weapon though, right? Because and when we saw this in The Mandalorian, I think, and a little bit better, where you need to thin out maybe what you're attacking. And so having that long range helps you do that, just like any other sniper rifle would. But it's still cool to, and you're right. So when it comes to bounty hunting though, you probably want to subdue. You don't want to kill. You would rather subdue because usually there's a better reward if you bring the target in alive, right? Warm instead of cold, I guess.
Yes.
So it makes a lot of sense that there's this lightning bolt or this electricity that they can shove through someone and incapacitate them entirely without necessarily killing them. So I'm assuming though, I wasn't able to find this, but I'm assuming he can tweak. This is like the whole switch to stun instead of to kill or whatever with your weapon. I'm assuming he can dial back the intensity of that part of the weapon.
The stun.
But I didn't see that, but it would make sense that he could.
Yeah, why not, right? in Legends, they used to allow them to dial back the intensity of lightsabers and the length of lightsabers, and
Right.
it seems like that'd be a good feature. If not, then it needs to be in there. And this is, I mean, I'm trying to remember. Did we see him use this as like a melee weapon of some sort?
Yeah, when he was fighting the
that's right.
Trandoshans, and then we also saw when the creature came through the ice in the first episode and grabbed onto the Razor Crest.
Yeah,
and he had to use it to dislodge the creature.
right. Yeah, so really cool weapon. This is like moved up to like one of my favorite weapons all time. And of course, we should note this originally appeared in the Star Wars Holiday Special from 1977 or 78.
I just love that. I love that that the design of this thing is captured like a World War I weapon, though.
Yeah,
I just think that's awesome.
All right, let's talk about the Westar 34, and this is the weapon that we know Jango Fett used, which I always thought was pretty cool. You can see it there. It's got a hollowed out hilt on it, or a handle, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Right.
And the thing about this is just really the rapid fire. And to your point earlier, you started. Let me just kind of recap on it. The Jedi, if you think about like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mace Windu, Anakin Skywalker, these guys were the elite, the top of the top, the 0.01% of all the Jedi. And yes, they were able to defend crazy amounts of firepower, right? Within limits, because even Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan Kenobi, when those droidekas show up in episode 1, they book it. They're like, we can't do this forever. There's no way. We got to get out of here. And so they leave. So there are limitations to it, even for the greatest, right? But your normal, everyday Jedi that's really good, but maybe not those guys, can get overwhelmed. And that's exactly what we see here. And I remember when this came out, I was like, there's no way, at least in my mind, the way I understood it, there's no way anybody could stop a Jedi that was trained with a blaster. And the reality is, yeah, you can. If you can overwhelm them with a rapid amount of fire, whether it be 2 double pistols like this that fire really quickly, or the short bursts that we talked about, the droidekas, the heavy repeat blasters, whatever, there's no way the Jedi is going to be able to defend those. And you are just going to overcome them. You'll overpower them with the amount of shots that you're taking.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, like you said, quick and nimble and versatile, right? So they've got to have things they can draw quick, try to do anything to get an advantage on an enemy who has an innate advantage over you already in everything that they do, because they can call on this mystical, sorcery that the Mandalorians don't really understand. And again, it's more practicality. These are convenient. These are lightweight. You can move around with them really easily. And, they're not some of the most powerful weapons though, but they're effective and they can subdue and they can take you out.
Yeah. So poor Coleman Trumbull, or Coleman, what was his name?
Coleman Trevor, something like that.
Coleman Trevor, the Jedi. I don't know. It's the dumbest name I think they've ever given anybody in the Jedi Academy or Council or whatever he's in. Right. That poor guy didn't stand a chance.
Lucas owns someone a favor, I guess.
There is a story behind it, and I can't remember what it is. Like, it's one of they named it after somebody in real life, but all right, not important. Okay, let's talk about this weapon, and this not that one. This one. This is the sonic beam, and there wasn't a lot out there. Like, you go out and you look this up, and it shows it was in one of the Star Wars visual guides, which is where I got the picture from.
Right.
But it doesn't really give you a lot of detail. All we know is that Boba Fett apparently had this at some point, and Jango Fett had this. I have a hard time finding it on either one of them in terms of where it's at, and maybe I just didn't look hard enough. But it was hard to find, and all I could find was that it, based on it, says you've got an emitter, activator, high frequency screamer, and a power cell. So my guess is, just as it sounds, it fires a sonic beam loudness of some sort that just incapacitates your opponent. And that's not. There's some reality here. I mean, the Navy has these weapons that sit on cruisers and battleships and stuff that emit sonic weapons, and there's all this talk and science behind that, how powerful that is and what it can actually do to you physically by overwhelming you with sound and all that. So there's some real science that this is founded upon, but I couldn't find much really about its use. Even I never, even in the comics, I didn't see them use this thing. But did you find anything on it?
No. And again, we were kind of musing that. How would you even? Where's this held? Is it attached to your arm, to your gauntlet? Where? Because this thing is so awkward looking. It's a cross between a saw and a trumpet. And that looks like a submarine. So is it flat? I mean, we can't even tell the dimensions of the thing. Is it flat to where you would hang it on something? It's just so unclear. But again, it makes the weapon itself makes a lot of sense, especially in the context of the Jedi.
Right.
Because Mandalorians, you have armor, you have protection over your head, you have all the gear in your helmet. to where you can prevent you from being impacted by this. And the Jedi, we all very rarely wear any kind of armor, and even more rarely have any kind of headgear on that would protect them. So this makes a lot of sense, and this is a really effective. This would be very effective against the Jedi in particular, or against really most enemies. And it's a bit surprising that you wouldn't see it made a bit more of a big deal. It seems like a real difference maker. It can really turn the tide of a battle if you bring this in after being engaged.
Yep. Yeah, I would claim that to be pretty effective, or have the potential to be effective against them.
Right.
So this is the one. I mean, we don't really need to spend a lot of time on this one because I think we all know how this thing works. This is the CZERKA ZX Mini Flame Protector, and I've seen a couple different names for it. You can see a picture here of Boba Fett, his left hand here. It's shown there. It's unclear to me, like when we get to the wrist laser, which is next, like which is which, but I think one of them is the flamethrower, one is the wrist laser. It's much clearer in the Mandalorian with Din Djarin that you can see there, and I think clearer with Jango Fett as well. But all of them have used this, all three of them, including Sabine Wren. She had this as well in later on. She finally gets her VAMBRACES later, like season 3 or something. It takes a while before she actually gets it, but once she does, it's kind of cool. They keep giving her different pieces, and she keeps upgrading it, and as she discovers more Mandalorian stuff and all that, similar to what we're seeing here with Din Djarin. But yeah, all of them really have this. This is just kind of like one of those staples that you have. And what better way to take out a Jedi than fire? Like, you're not blocking this,
Well,
and
if
you're gonna have
Anakin,
to rely on your reflexes.
right? If Anakin's taught anything, their clothing is not flame retardant, so
Yeah,
we know they will burn quite a bit.
they
And
will.
again, it's at least close range. When you are in really close proximity, you need something. We're going to get to some other melee type of weapons, but this, because it's in that general field of, you need to either create distance, like we've seen the Mandalorian do in particular, of trying to get distance around him, or get distance when you need it. But also, if you are in close proximity of an enemy, you can really do a lot of damage with this thing. And again, Jedi are not in position to have armor, and so this would do some serious damage.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw this with Mace Windu, right? When he confronted Jango and he jumps back, his cloak does catch on fire, but he knows, I've got to get out of here. I cannot stay engaged with him when he's got flames. In Star Wars: The Old Republic, there is that's a great point there. In Star Wars: The Old Republic, there is a number of, like, the Jedi, the Mandalorians, whenever you're fighting Sith or Jedi or whatever, vice versa, their flame is really a good benefit. Like, it does really well against the Force users. And yeah, I think they could push it back, but I think it's really just another one of these overwhelming things on top of all the other weapons that they have. And I guess that's what they're going for. It's not one thing that's going to kill you. It's all of these things that you need as a Jedi be able to be conscious of and be aware of, because they're going to get you with one of them. If this doesn't work and they push the fire away, hold on. I got more stuff here that we're going to show you that'll work.
Right. And the thing I like about the picture that you posted up there from the visual dictionary, I'm assuming, is you can actually see the hose attached to the flamethrower. So it's not movie magic type of thing. It was actually very practical of how they did it. So I just thought that was fun to point out. Little subtle things.
Right.
Wrist lasers. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the JER 24 wrist laser. And so again, if you see, like, look in this picture right here now, you see you've got the two holes there. He's firing it out of one of them, but then it's also here. You can see the two holes for the flamethrower. So
Right.
I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It's not important. But nonetheless, the wrist laser, and this was FET for the most part, it was created by BLASTECH. So that probably speaks to the accuracy. Here's one of the comic books that had it from Legends where he was using it. And it's essentially just fired a laser bolt. So think of it as a blaster bolt, if you will. And this would be maybe good if the Jedi pulled your weapon from you, right? Or you lost your weapon or whatever. You've always got one that's always attached to you no matter what. So it's kind of, think of it as a secondary backup type blaster.
Right. And presumably this is what Boba Fett was going to shoot at Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi when they were battling on the skiff, as he slowly raised up before Han accidentally tossed him into Boba Fett. But yeah, it looks like this looks like what he was going to use to take out Luke.
Yep. So here, let's quickly, these are the VAMBRACES, and we'll break some of these down individually. They've got all kinds of stuff. Like, if you look at the Mandalorians, they outfitted these things. It's a huge, this along with the helmet and the jetpacks are all kind of staples, right? And the Beskar, obviously, but they're all staples of the Mandalorian. You see them all have these and use them in different ways and have different types of attachments, or modified in a lot of different ways with different weapons. But generally speaking, they pretty much had a lot of the same ones, like the rocket launcher here, the little mini rocket launcher, which we'll talk about. That was there, the flamethrowers on the side, the wrist lasers, but this was, again, really key for them to have. So we're going to, again, continue to break these down. I thought we talked about the whistling birds.
Yeah.
This was something new. Well, sort of. It was new for us seeing it in The Mandalorian. What I did not realize, and as part of the research that I was doing this week, it actually came up before in The Rise of Skywalker. So when you go back and look at the visual dictionary for The Rise of Skywalker, which came out before, that had, there's a character in there, and I forget his name now. I have the book here, and I had a bookmark, but in the interest of time, it actually shows him standing there. He's a bounty hunter that's on Kijimi, and in his right arm, on his right arm, he's got a vambrace, and it says Mandalorian whistling bird, which I was like, oh, that's kind of cool that they snuck that in there. So this really wasn't technically the first time somebody supposedly, although that character wasn't even on screen that I'm aware of, but nonetheless, it was there first. They brought it over here, extended over here. This is a really cool weapon. I have questions about how it works because it seems like it was pretty accurate in the scene that you've got the little GIF here for where he's taking out the stormtroopers. Later on, when he's fighting, what's his face? When they're doing the prison break, right? He tries to fire it. It doesn't work. And we see him a little bit. We see him in the season 2 trailer or the preview. He does use it there as well, and it seems pretty accurate. He takes out a number of people with it too. So I don't know. It's interesting how it works. Do you program it? Do you have to program it, or is it controlled by your helmet? Or I don't know. Maybe they won't show us anything, and that's just the magic of it. But I do like it. I think it's an awesome weapon.
And again, translate this to how this would go against the Jedi. I mean, how do you defend against this type of thing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to disable it before it gets shot off because it's about the only way you're going to have any kind of thing. And yeah, it's probably got some sort of heat sensory to it, and something between either the gauntlet, because I think he does make a bit of a hand motion to activate.
Yeah, he does
them.
like a programming thing or something. Right. I don't know.
So again, and you were saying, the technology hub between the helmet and the gauntlets, this is where everything is kind of concentrated for the Mandalorian's weapon system and really pretty much everything. It would make a lot of sense. And if we look back at some of the Legends stuff, like the Republic Commandos, which really dove into a lot of the Mando type of culture and what was part of the helmets and what was doing, they used a lot of eye motion, a lot of blinking, a lot of facial recognition, facial scanning in order to activate things rather than touching something or touching their arm. So they had a lot of ability to be able to activate and do different things that you would never know what was happening because you can't see the face, you can't see, and you can't see what they're doing. And again, it's overwhelming at first when you do this for when they first put the helmet on, but as soon as you get the hang of it, then it becomes very lethal very quickly because you can do so many different things with it. And we saw a little bit of this with the scannings and the abilities of that we saw with when he was hunting Cara Dune. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, and this is the infamous FIBERCORD whip. Now, this is one of the weapons we've seen like a lot of. If you think about it, we see it in Return of the Jedi in the top right-hand corner with him wrapping Luke around. We see it in Episode 2 where he fires that on Kenobi. Jango fires that on Kenobi. He tries to anyways. And then Din Djarin, obviously in the very first episode of Season 1 where he pulls him and fires it at him, pulls him back. And then lastly, we saw it again twice in one season, which I thought was cool, when he uses the grappling hook feature of it to attach himself to Moff Gideon's TIE fighter so that he can put the explosives on there and blow that wing off. And so I don't know. We don't really, we all kind of know what this is. It is interesting that like Jango, like the way Boba Fett uses it, and maybe that's just the special effects weren't that great or whatever, but it is kind of interesting that he's able to fire it and it wraps around naturally. Got questions around how that works, but again, maybe it's just Star Wars science and movie magic, and probably shouldn't dive into that. But yeah, it's a cool weapon. I'd like to see him use more of this, and it's not exclusive to these guys. Every one of the characters that we've talked about, Jango, Boba, Sabine, Bo-Katan, they've all got this as kind of a standard issue. Yeah, it's so practical. I mean, you have so many different uses for it. It just makes a lot of sense that you would have it. And it's cool that they can use it more as a weapon rather than as, a repelling device or a grappling hook or those types of things, where they actually make a variety of use out of it. Yep. It's not, and Luke proved that it's not indestructible, so he was able to cut through it. But if you can get this on them, again, it's not one weapon. That's the key point here. Taking on the Jedi or taking on anybody or fighting a Mandalorian, you're not fighting them with, pistol and a pistol. You got all these weapons to contend with, and so they're just going to overwhelm you and overpower you with all of them. So, and that's really a great point, because if you just need to momentarily disable one, because you're going to fight in packs. So if you can momentarily disable a Jedi, you can get a huge advantage in that small amount of time if you're able to act quickly and act,
concisely or accurately.
Right.
So anything to get just a tiny advantage.
Yeah. And keep in mind, like, I hope this point hasn't been lost, but all of these weapons were not at once, right? These are natural evolutions of, okay, they found a way around this, or this isn't as effective now. How can we counter that? Let's come up with this weapon. It gets attached to their body, to their armor. And so they're constantly growing, they're constantly adapting and just making themselves these walking arsenals. And I have a really good picture of what that final product looks like, at least up until this point, when we get to the very last slide here, which I thought was cool.
It's impressive that they're actually able to carry all of this.
It's got to weigh a metric ton.
Oh my gosh, it does.
And we haven't even talked about the gauntlets. I don't have the gauntlet. There's some other things that I didn't put in here. There was just too many weapons. But the gauntlets are another one where that's, that just punching somebody with the gauntlet, the way it's created, it does some kind of a additional force. And so you take a punch from a Mandalorian and that's going to hurt.
It's the whole idea of a power gauntlet. Yeah. Where you kind of the same principle of what the vibroblade does. Yeah.
So this is probably the longest name, the Kelveric Consolidated Arms MM9 rocket. And we never got to see this thing fired. There's a picture there.
Old Republic, we do.
Yeah, Old Republic for sure. I meant in the movies. I'm sorry, but yeah, in Legends we see it quite a bit. And there's different rockets you can buy. There was like the anti-personnel rocket, which basically just exploded right when it hit.
Right.
There was a stun rocket that you could get. I think there were other ones, maybe poison gas, you name it. There was all kinds of stuff that they could arm themselves with.
And darts and whatnot as well. You could outfit with a variety of things.
Yeah, let's talk about the darts next, because that's here. This is the KNEEPAD rocket dart launcher. So and essentially it's just what it is. It's a knee pad. So you've got protection there, but at the same time it has these darts on it, and they would lace these darts with something called FX M3, which was this it was like a potent neurotoxin. And so again, you're sitting there fighting them one-on-one, doing whatever in close combat. You've got to worry about vibroblades, gauntlets, flamethrowers in your face, and then all he's got to do is take a knee either up or a foot, which we'll get to in a second as well. But if he takes that knee up and fires that dart in you, I mean, you're trying to block all these things at one time. This could kill you. It's like a neurotoxin that kills you with in 30 seconds is how it was read. And that was Boba Fett. He had that on his knee. I don't think any of the other ones had it exclusively, but I was very glad.
We don't see it with our Mandalorian now.
No,
we've seen the knees, and it's just armor.
Yeah,
but yeah, just another weapon. And again, the darts themselves. When you look at the darts, because they've also got some that you can do from the wrist as well. A variety of those. Of course, we saw a saber dart as well in Attack of the Clones. But usually, again, these are very short range type of items. They're short to medium. They did customize them a little bit over time to where you can do longer range, but really you start getting into more of another weapon to administer that one, to shoot it like a long range sniper. But again, darts in general, short to medium range, nothing really long range for the Mandalorians in general.
Yep. It was all about that. Well, unless that sniper rifle, but he's a different breed. Right. Here's the boot spikes. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? You put some spikes in your boot and shove that up in somebody's crotch, and they're going to feel it. So,
well, hold on. I don't view these really as a weapon. These seem more like a utility.
Oh, really?
These are this is almost like for climbing, right? Because I mean, you can shove these things into a wall and help you climb, or into a rock or whatnot. Now they're not huge, but anything to get a little bit of traction. They seem more utility to me than. And now, granted, they're not going to kill someone. These are not long. If we were to estimate, the spikes on these are probably an inch or less, right?
Yeah.
So it was. I don't know that they're a weapon. They could injure and they could wound. They won't kill though.
Yeah. Right.
I viewed more on the utility side of things than.
I like that. I can see them as utility, and if you have nothing else, yeah, you kick somebody with it, they're gonna at least feel it. They may not. You're not gonna kill them, but yeah, to your point, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah, and Jeremiah, thanks for pointing that out. Jeremiah posted what we were talking about gauntlets. I'd just like to mention the crush gaunts, which is what I was trying to get to with the power gauntlet. So thanks, Jeremiah, for clarifying that for us.
All right, this is let's see. Let's talk about the jetpack just quickly. This is the Z6 jetpack, and there's other models at the early on that predate Clone Wars, and even in the Clone Wars, there were other models that the Mandalorians were using. This is the one that Boba Fett uses. This is the one that Jango Fett uses, and you can outfit this with a rocket that goes up on top. And that rocket had a couple of different abilities. I mean, you had same thing, concussion. You can make it explode. Gas, smoke, and you outfit it with whatever kind of rocket you wanted. It was all interchangeable. it was kind of a one and done thing. I mean, once you fired that thing off, you're done. You don't really, you'd have to reload that thing, and who knows how long that takes or what that process looks like.
Right.
The interesting thing though was when we were looking at this, and this is just again more movie magic, but if this is the rocket, like the Z6 at least has a maximum height of 70 meters. So what, 200 and what is the math? 230 feet,
something like that. Yeah,
somewhere around there, which doesn't seem very high at all. It's not really that high. You're not flying in the atmosphere with this jetpack on. And when you think about that last episode of The Mandalorian season 1, when he gets the salute from the heavy infantry guy, the Vizsla character, that probably is a different jetpack. Would have to be a different jetpack. It definitely isn't this technology because according to the lore, it wouldn't have been able to fly that high.
Right, and look at what this would be used for. It's used for quick bursts to give you some sort of advantage. So get the high ground, Kenobi, which of course we see Django here in the lovely video you've given us, a little short here. But yeah, again, it was something to give quick bursts to get off the ground, to move quickly, not necessarily to fly around necessarily.
True.
It wasn't really meant for actual travel. It was really meant for mobility's sake, with the ability to do some light traveling. And if you look at, I mean, the where the engines are at, or the whatever these called, what emits the stuff. We need Stargate Pioneer. He's I don't know. He understands rockets, science, and all of that. It was just something you can't. Yeah, you're not going to get atmosphere with this type of thing. And we'd have to look a little more closely at what Vizsla was sporting, because it was definitely not this, because they were way up there.
Well, spoiler alert, we will, because we're going to talk about that here in a minute. So that's the homing missile is what they're using. And yeah, you're right. This was kind of to get up in the air, get some ground, get the high ground. If you play any video game where there's a Mandalorian, they all have that one move called Death from Above. And it's in like a number of games. And most recently it was in the Star Wars Battlefront 2 game. It was in Battlefront 1, I think. Maybe it was not, but it was in 2 at least. But Death from Above, being able to fly high above, your opponent's disoriented, not sure where you are. You can see them clearly. You're just raining hellfire down on them. So it's kind of what it was. So, and it gave them an advantage. It helped to equal the battlefield when they were going up against the Jedi, who were able to move really fast, jump really high, had the Force in their favor. This is what they did and what they came up with in order to compensate for that.
Right.
Okay, quickly, the MRSA and thermal detonators. I don't know. We don't necessarily need to go into this one, but just to make note, there's Sabine. She's holding one, but this was kind of a favored explosive. Some of them in Legends were like nuclear powered. In canon, there were just really big explosions. So take your pick. They're really powerful.
Yeah, really prominent throughout any kind of military outfit.
Here was one of my favorites, because I just love the fact that like Sabine had these all the freaking time. She had like no shortage of grenades. If anything needed to be blow up on the show, you could count that it was going to be her that did it. And I've got the little animated GIF there of her just slapping one on there from, well, I forget the cartoon series. Anyways, there's that one, and then there's another image there of her and Ezra.
Forces of Destiny.
Forces of Destiny. Thank you. And then the ones on the right there, those are the grav charge magnets. So those are the ones that the Mandalorian in season 1 slaps on the wing of Moff Gideon's TIE fighter in order to blow it up. So really cool. I love it. Really high impact explosive device that can stick to anything that you want it to. A lot of practical uses from it as well. Let's see. And then we'd be remiss by not mentioning the vibroblades. We're getting into like the melee weapons. There's only 2 here, but the vibroblade, we saw this when he's fighting the Mudhorn, and it certainly gives him advantage. Again, if you're in close combat and everything else is, you don't have anything available or accessible, this is a really quick weapon that packs a lot of punch because of the vibrations itself. And yeah, we saw it used to great effect to take down the Mudhorn in season 1.
Yep. Every infantryman has a knife. So makes sense.
Yep.
If your darts don't work, you stab them. Hopefully not in the groin.
Not in the groin, right. And then I guess the final melee weapon we have, and we're kind of coming to the end here, is the Darksaber. And I had to throw it in here because it is technically a Mandalorian weapon. It definitely was a Mandalorian weapon. Although, again, going back to in the bottom right-hand corner, I've got the little animation that we saw in Star Wars Rebels, along with Moff Gideon in the top right-hand corner, emerging with the Darksaber at the end of season 1. But just quickly, this was a weapon that was created by the first Mandalorian who became a Jedi. So he was a Jedi. He was wielding this Mandalorian weapon when he died during, I forget which war it was, one of the wars. the Jedi took it and they held it in their temple. Well, the Mandalorians were like, well, that's a Mandalorian. That weapon belongs to us. It is a, it's symbolic of, he was as awesome as he was because he was a Mandalorian. And we're the rightful owners of it. And so they ended up eventually going back, I think about 1,000 years BBY from the movies. They go back and raid the Jedi Temple, steal it, and have had it since then. And it's always become this iconic weapon and representative of whoever is the Mandalore. They would wield this weapon, the dark saber.
Right.
So and then once we've got, and then that probably gets us caught up because I think we probably spoke about it here at least a number of times on the show in terms of how it finally gets into the hands of Sabine. And what we don't know though is how it gets in the hands of Moff Gideon. We assume it's part of the purge, and we know that he has it. How deftly he uses it, how well versed he is in using it, I guess is to be determined. But if you think about it, if he's going to go toe to toe in season 2, which he has said that that's going to happen, I think we're going to see him use a lot of the weapons that he has, that we've talked about tonight in order to take on him. And my hope is that at some point he does get this weapon back and then again uses it to become the Mandalore and unite the clans and be all the great stuff that he is.
So if or when that happens, do you think we will see whether or not Beskar armor can really defend against a lightsaber type of weapon? Do you think we'll actually get visual confirmation of just how strong Beskar is when it comes to that weapon with the Converse side?
Yeah, and that's a good point. I had it in the notes. I probably just skipped over in my excitement. But yeah, the Beskar armor was created again as a result of the Jedi and having lightsabers. Look, we need to defend ourselves. Beskar is native to Mandalore. You can only find it on Mandalore, at least how Legends, and I think Concordia as well. I think you could find it on the moon of Concordia, which is right next to Mandalore. But they designed that armor because you couldn't penetrate it with a lightsaber. It could take on a couple of hits. I mean, at some point, if you held a lightsaber to it, I imagine it would melt it would have an impact. Right. But yeah, so the question whether or not we see it deflect that, I think we do. Visually, I think it would be cool to see. I think it would amp up the coolness factor of Beskar to just the normal person who knows nothing about Beskar, is not watching this show, not listening to us, right? They're going to see for firsthand, like, whoa, this is more than just really cool looking armor. And it gives some weight to the fact that he had this full suit and how he got it and why it's so important to him and why it's so important to the Mandalorians themselves and the client and, and having that. And I think it plays a huge role there in providing some weight and significance to it.
So what's interesting about the Darksaber though, is that it does have a certain power that emanates from it, right? It does have this aura to it that I don't know if it can consume the person who wields it, but it definitely can amplify some of that, right? Are you familiar with this?
No.
Right. Yeah. So there is some sort of dark power that emanates from it that you can actually increase your strength as a result. So it's almost like the force is imbued in this type of weapon, but more of maybe like dark side force or something to just equate to it. I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but there have been I was reading some of the stuff where it was the power it could wield to or give to the user could make a difference in battle too, however you train to use it. And apparently while you could use it to train well to use it, there would be a different one. Now, and in that reading though, some of it was referencing Sabine and what it took for Sabine to, get over some of her aggression, and that it was kind of imbuing into her. And I was trying to remember in Rebels when she was training with Kanan exactly what that looked like. I know she was frustrated a lot, but I don't know I can't remember if they actually confirmed it was the dark blade was contributing to that or not.
I don't think so, but I know the scene very distinctly. It's where she's fighting Kanan and he's just like berating her with all kinds of comments about she needs to step up and, save her people and all that. So yeah, I can see where that is. I don't know where I honestly didn't know that there is some kind of power. Maybe, and if it is true, that's awesome because it makes sense. I think it falls in line with what you would expect from Mandalorian. We've talked about evolution of weapons, the growth, them constantly changing, adapting. That seems like a natural thing a Mandalorian would do. I've got a lightsaber, but I don't want to be like all the other lightsabers. I want to do something more. I want to make this more powerful. Let me figure out how to enhance this so that as whoever the wielder is imbued with additional strength, agility, whatever else. Again, it's all to be determined because we don't know a lot about the Darksaber, but that's a cool idea. I do like that.
It also speaks to why the Jedi thought it was so important to retain this and to hide it, right? Or another reason. I mean, the symbol of leadership, of course, is really important. But if there was something else to it, it would make a lot more sense the Jedi would want to, control and limit somebody getting and using that against them.
Well, yeah, especially a Mandalorian. I mean, they've got a horrible history with them and
Right.
all of that. The last thing they want to do is get this in some zealot's hand who's going to use it and overtake them and take them down with this thing. So yeah, it's self-preservation. Let's put it in our care, our safety, our comfort, and not let anybody get it, especially the Mandalorians. Okay.
Imagine if you, and we only had the very first one, but imagine if you had a Mandalorian with Force abilities, just how, with all of these gadgets and gizmos. Well, yeah.
I don't know. I'm kidding.
It would be insane, though. I mean, how could you stop someone like that?
I don't know. That would be a cool hybrid of the best of both worlds. So I threw this in here just gratuitously because I love the look of the heavy infantry. So this is the Vizsla character from season 1. He's got this is like the epitome of where we've come evolutionary-wise for Mandalorian's armor, Mandalorian's weapons. I mean, he's got everything. He's got everything we've talked about for the most part. There's some things missing here, but he's got grenades. He's got the wrist rockets. He's got, he ditched a rifle and just went with the heavy repeater gun, right? The repeater rifle, much like Baze Malbus had in Rogue One, which is a nice segue into your t-shirt there tonight. He's got the gauntlets. He's got, this is just, it's so awesome. And then you think of the jetpack. You can see it. It's kind of hard to see in the top right-hand corner here, but his jetpack definitely does not look like the ones that we talked about earlier, right? It does not look like a Z6 by any means. It looks like a different version of it, more evolved version. And so maybe you could argue that this one is capable of higher altitudes and long, long-term flight and all of that. But
it sure looks like it. I like that the image that you picked is all the sideshow toys because they took some amazing photos of this toy.
They do. It's hard. Like at times you're looking at this and like, is this the actor? Or is no, that's a toy that you can buy for
they're that good sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got his vibro blade there. So that was kind of it. We didn't cover every weapon. Like I said, we covered a lot, and we're already at an hour and 11 minutes with the show. So minus the news, which was like 15 minutes. But nonetheless, there are a lot of weapons, and we could spend even more time going through them. But again, the point of this is why does he call it a religion? So hopefully we've made the case as to why it's a religion, right? We said it's part of this culture of conquest that they had. They had to be they had to be able to conquer. That's part of their growth. It's part of who they are. And in order to do that, they had to come up with weapons, and they had to come up with weapons from they fought a lot of different people. We focused a lot on the Jedi tonight, but they were at war with a lot of people, a lot of different alien races that had strengths and weaknesses. And so it was just naturally over time, the evolution of all their weaponry, their armory, the armor itself that they had, that all came about and stemmed about from all of these different battles that they had and having to adjust as they were traversing around as these nomads and calling different planets, right, Mandalore or home, if you will.
Right. Again, in the whole bounty hunter aspect of things, you have to be able to do a variety of activities, and you have to fill the need for whatever your clan needs as well, right? Mm-hmm. So you need a variety of things at your disposal to be able to do that and be able to perform that. It's just like having a tool for your garden. One tool is not good enough. Right. So to defend, protect, and conquer, you need a lot more.
Yep. Can't take a hammer to a gunfight. I think that's how it goes. I'm not sure.
It could. It might be okay, but probably not.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. A lot of going down memory lane with legends and all that. So I enjoyed it. Hopefully you did as well. Before we get out of here, we do have some feedback. We've got a 5-star review, which is really cool. And I don't know, Jonesy, I've done a lot of talking. You want to read the review for us?
Sure. You have it up? Find it. You surprised me here. Bear with me. All right. It's titled The Team. Awesome having Albert and Jonesy back together with 4 exclamation. Yeah, 4 exclamation points. That's a lot. Hope all is well with them and their families. So that's from Dubliner 27 of the United States of America from the 8th of October. So we appreciate it. Appreciate you listening. And it's great to be back with Albert. He's kind of an all right person. I don't know if you knew that, folks.
Thank you. I'll take it. I've been called worse, so I appreciate that. No, thank you for the 5-star review, Dubliner. It's helping weed out that what we think was a child who decided to punch a bunch of numbers and letters and emojis on the review that gives a 1 star. So yeah, thank you. It's helping to balance that out a little bit more. So you could do your part as well. If you want to leave us a review, please do so on Apple Podcasts. We'd really appreciate that. We'll definitely read it if you come on the air. Once it comes through, we'll read it on the air. And then obviously, if you guys want to continue, if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe on YouTube. Follow us with all these these shows get put into a podcast that Mike does, and so this will be out here hopefully later this week. And subscribe to the podcast as well. We've got Patreon. You can support us that way as well, and follow us on social media and all that good stuff. So normally we should say all that up front, but we don't ever do that. We save it to the very end. Okay, I think that's it. And I didn't even break out, like I had all my books here. I was going to break out my encyclopedia, my Nostril book, all the stuff that I've been reading this week to prepare for the show, which has been a lot of fun, but I didn't get a chance.
Fly that nerd flag, man. Fly that flag. Do it brave.
Oh, man. You can't see because of the green screen, but I've got a plethora of reference material back here that I just read for leisure because, it's fun.
You have nothing else to do with your time, and
right.
You're still not sleeping.
Nothing else to do. Yep. So, all right, we're going to get out of here. That'll be the end of this show. You guys, do you have any last words? Final words? Last words. I'm going to kill you. You have any last words? No, final words.
Final words, yeah.
Final
hammer time. Let's get out of here.
All right, we're going to get out of here. Thank you, guys. We'll be back again for episode 346, and that'll be the, what was the show? Oh, Is the Galaxy Safer Now? I think is what we call that show, right? So we're working on that. We're going to come back and talk about what the galaxy is like right now, given that the Empire is no longer around, and this came from one of our Patreon users who submitted one of the questions during the Q&A. So, all right, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for being here.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.